Welcome to Q Stories. My name is Joanna Ganger, and I go by she, her.
And my name is Darrion Johnson. I go by she, her. So, what was it like navigating early transition?
Uh, my early transition was only a few years ago.
Okay.
So I did not come out until I was 77. And my coming out was an extremely long process, so it wasn't like most people, as far as I can tell. So there was no major things that happened.
Mm-hmm.
I was seriously coming out from age 60 to 75, and through counseling, finally at 75, I accepted that yes, indeed, I am. Because up until that time, from age 5, I was told I was a bad person for thinking that. This is back in the 40s, and so I did 16 years of really kind of thinking really hard about it, and so it was just a very gradual thing. And finally, when I accepted it, when I was 75, I couldn't accept. I realized that what I was doing was a lie. And I just couldn't accept the lie. And so I came out then, but it was just low key.
Yeah, just took your time and made sure that it was the right decision.
I don't know whether it was that. I mean, to some extent, yes, because it took a lot of counseling for me to accept that. Mm-hmm. I've wanted it all along, but it just took a long time to accept it. And it was more just a religious thing, a religious hindrance. And then finally, when I realized, no, I don't, my gender is not my choice, I realized I've been lying to people all my life, and I just couldn't accept that.
Okay. I kind of went a similar way, just kind of like taking my time, and I did go to counseling as well. Not for long, because I kind of knew, and before I came out, I never really took gender too seriously, because whatever they say, it's a construct, and just like we're put these expectations on our genders. And once I talked to my therapist, and it kind of just like validated my feelings and just made it feel easier to accept myself. So therapy definitely helped a lot with that.
Okay. When did you suspect and then know and finally present yourself as your true self?
So it's kind of weird, because like from a young age, I always had that little razzle dazzle. And I just remember in daycare or just growing up in general, I always wished I was a girl, or I wish it was more acceptable to be playing with the girls or playing with girl stuff, wearing makeup and this and that. And so there was always that aspect. And then I think it was Halloween of 2019, I forget his name. It was some rock star, and they had eyeliner, and I put that on one time and did the black nails, and that was my official awakening. Okay. And I just loved it, and I explored more with it. I definitely tiptoed into it and seeing what was accepted and what was not. So it was definitely fun to play with gender roles and just take my time with figuring it out.
Okay.
Let's see. So did you have any trans people that you looked up to or that you looked up to now?
I guess the answer is no. In terms of looking up to, I have very few trans friends, and most of that is because I used to think I had no memory, and that came up when I was in first grade at 5 years old, and they said we're going to memorize multiplication tables and things of that nature. And I said, oh. So I always thought I had no memory. Later, like in my 60s, I realized, yeah, it's in there because if I hear a clue, I can find it. It's I have no recall. And so I'm embarrassed to be around people because if I know their name, it's gone the next time when the next piece of information comes. And so even with the support group here in Dayton, I can't remember their names, and I can't remember what they've said. And so it's like, well, I don't want to say something and look stupid because it was already said.
Yeah.
And I couldn't call them by name, and that really bothered me. So I just kind of kept quiet. Almost all of my friends are straight.
Okay.
So I don't, and in that respect, I'm kind of lost because I don't have peer groups to learn from.
Okay. So have you been in have you been going to the LGBT meetings recently or for a long time?
I started, I think, right after I came out, which would have been like in 2017. But then I kept forgetting, and I fell from a roof right after I came out. I had all these visions of intermingling, learning, how to really be a woman. And about 8 months after I came out, I was helping a friend, and my knee collapsed when I stepped from the ladder to the roof, and kicked the ladder off when I went down, and I got pretty well messed up. And so my dreams of how I would evolve just came to a halt. And so my friends are primarily my church group. When I came out to my church, I talked to the pastor a while after. No one, absolutely no one, had a problem with me.
That's awesome.
They not only welcomed me, they embraced me, and and so that's where my friends are. So I don't have. I think I've got. I think Bobby Brooks is probably the closest friend I have, and I've known her for a while, but it's only recently that we've had lunch together. But so after the injury, I couldn't walk very well, and I didn't get around. And then in the last year and a half or so, I've tried to get back in the group, but I write notes, and I forget where the notes are. So I have missed a lot of meetings. Matter of fact, I missed the last one, and I didn't want to do that.
That's okay. There's always the next one.
Who were the first people that you confided in about your gender identity?
So my mom has always had a keen sense of who I was and who I was becoming. I think I was living with her at the time, and she always just clocked me for what it was, and super obviously nice about it, but just she always wanted to know and always be there for me. So she was the first person that kind of asked, is this what's happening, or are you thinking about changing genders or this and that? And so I was the first person, and then just slowly, friends, a few family members. I'm still not like, I wouldn't say like I'm not fully out, because I present as a woman, and I presented as a woman for a long time. Kind of going back to the gender roles, I never really took it too seriously. I feel like as long as I'm being true to myself, I don't really have to explain to somebody what I think or who I think I am. So I'm sure everybody knows, but some people I just haven't had that conversation with.
My experience was a little different in that my folks were long gone by the time. But I think even, when I was 5, I noticed a difference between boys and girls and how they behaved and what they said. And I thought, I don't like what boys are saying. That's not my core values. But what girls said and did was closer to my core values. So at 5, I suspected, and at 7, there was an event that I said, this is it. This is where I belong. And if all of my worries and agony just kind of vanished for 20 minutes or so when I had this experience. And that's when I knew. But I was deathly afraid of my folks. So I wasn't going to tell them anything. And I played, my mode of survival was not being noticed. And so I couldn't ask for anything, advice or anything. And my folks never, I'm sure they never, no one really suspected, even at work, up until the time I came out. I think it was a shock to everybody. And then finally, when I was probably around 75, there was a group of us that met after church at Panera. And a friend was sitting across the table, and she said, how are you? And it's, one of those where, you usually answer, I'm fine. And I said, I'm fine. And she leaned across the table and she said, no, John, how are you? I couldn't lie. I couldn't lie anymore. That was the moment that I told people for the first time that I had a gender identity issue. I hadn't resolved it yet because I thought it was a sin. But at that moment, saying I was okay was a lie, because I was all messed up inside, emotionally. And that group of ladies, I don't think the guys at the table heard, but because I always sat with the ladies. But that was the first time I came out and acknowledged that I had a gender identity issue. That was I was probably in my 60s then, and it was another. And then I retired when I was, And then so my transition, my journey was between age 60 and 75 when I accepted Joanna, but then it was another 2 years before I came out in public and to my kids and family.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy. Just being out in a world that hasn't fully accepted us yet. I would say that I'm very blessed to have grown up in a time where people are learning more about it, and there's a lot of people that haven't accepted it, but there's a lot of people that have. And yeah, I'm lucky to be able to explore my journey
Yeah.
without, yeah, it's scary all the time. And it's very scary, but at the same time, it's a lot easier than back then.
Back then, yeah.
So
You're talking about scary, that journey, and that brings to mind when people say, "Oh, you're so brave." I never looked at it as bravery. I looked at it as, or what I felt was, I've been a fake, and I lied to people about who I was and what I was. And it was, after all that time, I couldn't accept lying anymore. And it was not a brave thing. Actually, when I came out, I was going to my counselor. I had an appointment, and he got double booked. And so I said, well, I'm okay. Let's, let him have it. And so he said, well, I've got an opening a little later, like at noon. And I said, okay, I'll take that. And so I was free to do whatever I wanted. And I thought, well, the company, the retirees for the company, or for the government company, that was the day they were having a picnic. And so I said, well, I'll go as male, John, and I'll go as Joanna, because I had dressed. That was the first time I dressed to be with my counselor. And so I'll go as Joanna, and I'll go and I'll pay, and I'll say I'm paying for John. And then I'll go to the counselor, and then I'll go home and change into John, and John will show up at the picnic. And so I went and I paid, and I said, I'm paying for John. And as I left, I heard somebody say, John? And I thought, well, I'm dressed as Joanna. They can't be talking to me. And I said, no, maybe that sounded familiar. And so I turned around, and it's kind of like, you've come this far, and this person called me. Don't, it's meant to be. Don't throw it away. And so I turned around and talked, and I said, yeah, I'm you know me as John.
Yeah. And
that was the first time I came out publicly, in general public. But it was an accident, just a series of situations. And I said, well, okay, don't throw it away. Let's go with it.
Yeah, anyway, just to put that foot in the door and just to feel more comfortable. It is kind of sad that being yourself is considered brave. I feel like it shouldn't take courage to wear makeup or take courage to wear a certain type of clothes when it's not that big of a deal. It's like, I'm not doing anything that crazy out of the world that it should be considered super brave of me to do it. So it's nice when people say that, but it's also like, I'm just living my life.
Yeah, I was going to mention, I was envious when you talked about your mom. I don't think my folks would have accepted me, but that was more, maybe they would have, maybe it was just that feeling, because I was terrified of my dad, and it was not necessarily something he did, it was my interpretation of what was going to happen, which was an impossibility. And at 3 or 4, it just went beep, and I flipped out, and so there was a terror that I could not identify. All I just knew was I was terrified. And then my mom was a dutiful wife, and she said, well, I'm going to have to tell your dad about this. So I did not talk to my folks, and I did not. But when I came out, I did it by phone. I called each of my 3 sons, and they all accepted me. And I called my brother, and he accepted me. And so I've been accepted by my kids and by most of Mary's kids, and she has a daughter, which was the only daughter I wanted a girl so bad, and so I love my daughter through Mary, but she was an adult when Mary and I got together, and but her granddaughter. So I saw her grow as an adult, but when she had a daughter, I got to see my granddaughter. I got to see a daughter grow as a child. So it took 2 people to do that thing, but that's been a blessing for me. Though I haven't had anybody get in my face about it, my transition. My wife, of course, she has the most to lose, and she's been trying to deal with that. And it took a long time for her to accept me as Joanna. But that's about as far as it's going to go, I think. We'll never have an ultra close, best friends forever relationship. I'm really sad about that, but she's been trying, but she's the one that had a lot to lose, so I can't blame her for that.
So do you, or did you find it hard to find gender-affirming like clothes and makeup when you first came out?
Makeup, yes. Clothes, it was serendipity. I saw clothes when I first started looking. I said, oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. And so I found clothes, dresses and stuff that I liked, but then, and that was the beginning. That got me started. And then a little later, I didn't find things that I liked. And so it was kind of like, I don't know, somebody was watching out for me, that when I needed to do that initially, it all kind of fell into place.
Okay.
Yeah.
My kind of like clothes journey and makeup journey, it was very interesting because I kind of had to teach myself what was my new style. My style has changed a lot growing up, but this is basically a whole new wardrobe, a lot of thrifting, so it's not a super easy to find clothes that will, I guess, fit my stature. And just to make me like, basically, because the worst thing that I guess I have trouble like in the back of my mind is people thinking that I don't look woman enough, which is a toxic thing to think in the first place, but it's something that just always in the back of your head, and just that validity. So it was definitely tough, and especially with, as well as makeup, just trying to explore what looks good on me. When I first started doing makeup, when I presented more as non-binary, just I didn't really care about the role. It was very subtle. It was more designs, sparkles, this and that, just something fun. And I think it's been like a fun journey, just exploring and basically playing dress up as an adult. So it's been very cool.
Makeup was not a success for me. I had a mentor. My counselor assigned me with a mentor, and so she gave me instructions, wrote instructions out for makeup. But when makeup, I could look at myself in the mirror with makeup, and I still saw John's face. I couldn't get rid of John's face. Now, this mentor, she bought a wig for an event that she went to, but she bought it with the intent of selling it to me, and that was the one that I said it's like a Farrah Fawcett, but it looks a lot like this, but a lot fuller. When I have that on, the hair coming down, I lose John's face. But makeup, I can't lose John's face with makeup, but the hair. But now, at church I associate with people my age, so it's like the younger kids, my younger friends are in their 60s, and so people in their 70s and 80s, they stop wearing makeup for the most part, and so I don't. It's been a long time since I've worn makeup.
Was that a big part of your transition? Did you lean a lot into makeup?
I had hoped a lot. I had envisions of, as makeup applied, I would feel, each step I would feel more feminine, more feminine, more feminine, more feminine. And, but John's face just kept staring me in the mirror, out of the mirror, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to get past that idea of, will I still have, like you said, John's face, or I still look in the mirror all the time, and that's still the boy, that's still a man, and it is hard, but I definitely try not to think too deep into it. And for myself, wearing makeup and being more feminine, wearing nails, just anything that I can do that kind of gives me more of a feminine energy, just goes a long way for myself.